Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Vortex, where lies and falsehoods are trapped and exposed. I'm Michael Voris, coming to you from the Catholic Prayer Presence outside LA's Dodger Stadium, just a little bit before the entire event here kicks off. Crowds are already starting to come in. This controversy arose from the decision by the Dodgers to first invite, then disinvite, then re-invite the group known as the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, a group which largely mocks Catholic women religious to gain attention for fundraising efforts for various liberal causes. But what many people don't know is the background of this group. Where did they come from? When did they start? How did all this suddenly become a thing? Unsurprisingly, you don't have to go to LA to find out about this, but San Francisco in the late 1960s and the 1970s, where all sorts of outrageous groups were forming and roaming about trying to draw attention to gay causes. Most of that activity originated and took place in a neighborhood area of San Francisco known as the Castro District, which, ironically enough, had been a heavily populated Irish Catholic enclave until all of that began. In the late 1970s, 3 men arrived from Iowa City, Iowa, with actual nuns' habits they had tricked out of the nuns, the sisters at a convent there, saying, according to press reports, they were just borrowing those habits for the production of a Sound of Music redo. Once in San Francisco, the men donned the habits, on Easter weekend no less, threw themselves into the morass of the Castro District, and then rose to prominence above the earlier groups, all of those, and became established as the definitive group dedicated to mocking cultural and traditional values through denigration of mostly Catholic teaching. In October of 1980, they held their first formal fundraiser, a bingo game. Of course it was a bingo game. An advance write-up in the San Francisco Chronicle immortalized their name as the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, and that's how the whole thing began. From there, it was full steam ahead. As their numbers grew, as well as support in a rapidly culturally transforming San Francisco overall, they began making national headlines with plays and skits mocking religious leaders like Jerry Falwell and Phyllis Schlafly and Anita Bryant and Pat Buchanan. They protested heavily against Pope John Paul II's visit to San Francisco in 1987, as well as Pope Benedict's visit to the United States. Beginning in 1995, the group began an annual 13-stop pub crawl in San Francisco, specifically to mock the Stations of the Cross. It also sponsors an annual what it calls Hunky Jesus contest, where participants mock the Way of Sorrows by featuring muscular men carrying crosses through the streets and waving to the crowds. The group's organizing structure is set up in an extremely close parallel to a women's Catholic religious order, with an actual application process, then after acceptance, a 6-month consultancy, and then a novitiate period where the group's history and purpose is taught. Then there is an investiture ceremony where the newbies are given habits, but not the full habit, until they have passed through that stage and then make a public commitment to remain in the sisters for the rest of their lives. At that point, their clothing, their habits, and their makeup are assumed in full. This is a mockery of Catholic women religious straight up. No matter how you slice and dice this, it is a precision strike against Catholicism. Much closer to their founding, they went to various Christian congregations to make their presence known in San Francisco, but in the passing of the years, they have focused their vile antics specifically on Catholicism almost exclusively. Back in the 1990s, they actually used to attend regular Mass in those habits of theirs, those outrageous habits, at Holy Redeemer Parish in the Castro, and would even go up to receive Holy Communion. It's telling to look at the string of archbishops at the time of the blasphemous order began and then expanded and began flourishing. When they arrived in San Francisco in 1979 and then went very public in 1980, John Quinn was the archbishop. He was rumored himself to be homosexual, or at least very sympathetic to it. He remained archbishop until 1995, nearly 20 years, and it was under his reign and largely tepid response that the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence established themselves, but then flourished, facing almost no pushback from Quinn for their horrid mockery of the Catholic faith. He would occasionally release a statement, and that was about it, because that's all they do is release statements. 1995, he was replaced by Archbishop William Levada, who was soon facing accusations of sex abuse cover-up and mishandling of numerous cases of teenage boys being abused by priests. It was under both Quinn and Levada that the group would attend and often present themselves for Holy Communion at Holy Redeemer, again, with very little pushback from either prelate, although there was, as we said, very occasionally that one, every now and then statement, but nothing ever happens. In 2005, Archbishop George Niederauer arrived from Salt Lake City, where he had been the only religious leader in the state to not oppose a pro-gay legislative slate in Utah. The only one. He, too, once in San Francisco, offered nothing to speak of in terms of asserting Catholic teaching, and at the end of his tenure in 2012, the juggernaut of the group itself was now well ensconced and going nowhere. Over those years, the blasphemous anti-Catholic hate group now claims 13 houses and 6 missions in multiple U.S. cities, including right here in Los Angeles. Around the globe, there are roughly 600 fully professed members in Australia, Canada, Colombia, France, Germany, Scotland, Switzerland, the UK, and Uruguay, according to various press reports based on the group's claims. 40 years ago, this was just a small group of many such groups who mocked religion and traditional values to gain attention and push their agendas. Now, 40 years later, they are the recognized, almost exclusively international group using outlandish mockery and blasphemy against the church. When the Dodgers invited and then re-invited them, it was ostensibly to honor them for contributing to the community for all the good causes flowing from their fundraising. Given this history, perhaps now you can see what a truly pathetic response it has been from virtually all, not quite all, but mostly all U.S. bishops, most especially Los Angeles Archbishop Jose Gomez, to publicly distance themselves from the crowd of any lay Catholics, all these people coming from all over the country here right behind me, gathering here today and preferring, in his words, to engage in dialogue. Well, how about a little dialogue with the sheep out of here? Your Excellencies, talk with them. Yeah, you just heard somebody go by and yell blasphemies at us. No great shock, we're expecting that. Every single time some big story happens in the Catholic world where the good of the faithful is at play, you can count on the overwhelming majority of bishops to simply turn tail and start blathering on about dialogue. A dialogue which, by the way, never happens. Never happens. Coming to you from Los Angeles Dodger Stadium, parking lot 13, with this Catholic lay response on the solemnity of the Sacred Heart, which is why you see so much people here wearing red, so many, including us. This is Michael Voris for Church Militant. God love you.